Looking at Cardano, I am cautiously optimistic overall. What is up, Hash Nation? You asked for it, so here it is. It's Token Talk Tuesday, and we are talking about Cardano. We're going to be talking about what the smart contract solution is that they've brought to the table in late 2018, as well as my thoughts as an Ethereum developer about what Cardano has to offer. So without further ado, let's hash it out. Guys, really quickly, before we get started, if we are just meeting, my name is Forrest. I'm an Ethereum developer in industry, and on this channel, I'm here to help you build your knowledge, boost your cryptocurrency gains, and help you join the movement to our distributed, decentralized future. And if that sounds good to you, make sure you smash that subscribe button and make sure that bell notification button is clicked so that we can hang out every single time I post a video. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the video. Like Ethereum, Cardano is a distributed application environment or ecosystem that is hoping to bring mainstream use of smart contract-based solutions and distributed applications to end users. And part of that mission is to make it easy for developers to make efficient and secure distributed applications on their platform. Cardano is actually run by an organization called IOHK, and that stands for Input Output Hong Kong. The more you know. And that organization is partly founded and led by none other than Charles Hoskinson. I am a big fan of Mr. Hoskinson, and I think he is a bona fide genius. One little fun fact is that Mr. Hoskinson actually worked with Vitalik Buterin to create some of the early core code for Ethereum, and along the way, I think they came to a disagreement, meaning the Ethereum core development team and Mr. Hoskinson, about whether or not they would go in to be venture capital funded or whether they were going to remain a non-profit organization. Long story short, things didn't work out for the Ethereum protocol for Mr. Hoskinson, so he left to build his own platform, and that is where Cardano came to be. The biggest thing to note here is that rather than just forking the Ethereum code or another platform for that matter, Cardano is actually built from the ground up, so from scratch. Now obviously, all code takes inspiration from other things, but this is not just a fork of Ethereum that's been modified in some different way. That's points for Cardano right up front, and that takes some serious guts to build something from scratch, so I respect them there. And that said, Cardano comes with a pretty lofty vision, and the idea is that this third generation blockchain, Ethereum being second generation, Cardano being third generation, I see what you did there, Mr. Hoskinson. The Cardano ecosystem is really looking to be a near real-time transaction environment with little to no fees. So hopefully free transactions, we'll see, but also one that is infinitely scalable. And that is the one that is really, really gutsy to say and to claim that you're going to accomplish, because infinite scalability in a blockchain environment is, needless to say, very difficult. Let's get this out of the way up front. Cardano has not achieved what they've said they want to achieve in the mission statement for the protocol. That's not a bad thing, and notice that I said yet. I'm not saying that I don't think they can achieve that. I'm saying they, nor have anyone else, achieved what it is they want to achieve. So that being said, what does this proof of stake blockchain network offer that is unique from Ethereum, and in general, what makes it such an appealing opportunity for Ethereum developers and even other folks out there that want to start working with blockchain networks as a developer? Let's discuss. In theory, Cardano is really looking to target the same audience as Ethereum, and its overall mission is very similar, but that's really where the similarities end, because architecturally and the structure of Cardano and how it works are very different than Ethereum today. First and foremost, Cardano is a two-layer solution, meaning there is a blockchain layer and a computation layer that are separate. Whereas most blockchains have some level of abstraction between those two things. The Ethereum virtual machine, for example, is technically separate from the blockchain, but they're very coupled and very tightly coupled at that. So by splitting those two core functionalities into layers, there are a few key benefits that Cardano is able to achieve. And the first of those is making it easier to update the protocol individually without having to do a soft fork. And that's something that's really unique to Cardano, but there are a lot of different blockchains that are doing that more and more now because they've seen the struggles that Ethereum and other platforms have had just making minor updates to the protocol itself. So as you may have inferred from my prior statements about this two layers that Cardano consists of, there is the Cardano settlement layer and the Cardano computation layer. The settlement layer consists of the blockchain, and that is where the record keeping and the transactions occur. So that is the normal blockchain layer that you would think of for other platforms. And the Cardano computation layer is where all of the smart contract functionality and the core virtual machine functionality is done. So obviously all the computations that happen on chain are processed there. And so the supported development languages are going to be fed through that computation layer on their way to the blockchain. Now, I have the opportunity right now to work on a project where I have some freedom about what platform I am going to use to build it. And as part of that project, I've challenged myself to use a new platform that I've never used before, and in this case, it's Cardano. I want to use the Plutus smart contracts that were released at the end of last year, and I just want to get familiar with how things work on Cardano and get my hands on the code and really use it. So that said, I will definitely be releasing a more in-depth video about what my findings are after using it hands-on, like I did with the Tron video. You can check that one out above, because I think as you build with something, you get intimately aware of all of the flaws, all of the real benefits, and just the inner workings of how these ecosystems are built. So I'm very excited to get started with that project, and I will report back as soon as I can. But for now, I'm going to share my thoughts with you as an Ethereum developer, having done my own research and having gotten a limited, very limited amount of hands-on time with Cardano and the Plutus smart contracts, so we can get a baseline before I do that project. That brings me to the most important thing to me, and that is the Plutus smart contract language and the introduction of a new smart contract engine for the Cardano blockchain. This brings new rules, a new way to write smart contracts, and just in general, a new paradigm for the smart contract ecosystem. As a Solidity developer, I welcome it because Solidity, as you know, has its flaws. The Ethereum virtual machine also has its flaws, and I've really been trying to broaden my horizons and learn about what other smart contract languages and processes there are out there, so that I can just compare and contrast, and hopefully Solidity does continue to improve over time. The Plutus smart contract platform is built on the Haskell programming language, and that Haskell programming language is often revered in the developer community for being very maintainable, very efficient, and overall fairly easy to write and work with. That being said, the Plutus smart contract platform is active, it's ready to roll, and there are a lot of developer tools, a lot of tutorials and documentation out there for people to try this stuff out. There is a Plutus playground, which is basically a development environment for you to test out pre-built applications, and it's a great place for developers to learn how to use a new platform. I use those things all the time, and actually a playground is how I learned to use Solidity way back when. So I'm super stoked that they have these documentation pieces in place. I can't tell you how important it is as a developer to have options when you're trying to learn something new. Without documentation, it's very difficult to learn something in this space, and I'm super glad that they have that down pat. Now, my favorite thing about Plutus smart contracts thus far from what I've read and the research that I've done is that it allows you to write single stream code in a smart contract environment. Now, what does that mean? Nowadays, I find myself writing really massive trees of JavaScript code that really governs the API calls for my smart contracts, and then the smart contracts themselves, which is all the functions that run through the Ethereum virtual machine and create transactions on the blockchain, so on and so forth. This is fine and dandy, and this works just fine. Everything works the way it's supposed to. But it gets very complicated as your application grows because you have all these different JavaScript files probably stored somewhere else and running somewhere else. Then you have your Solidity files running on the blockchain, stored somewhere else. And it gets very difficult to bounce between those things and come back in as a developer later on and say, what was I thinking here? What was I doing here? Even if you have good documentation written in, it can be very confusing. Now, what single stream code means is that you can write both the on-chain part and the off-chain part all in the same file. So rather than having two separate files with a bunch of code between the two of them, you can have one file, all of that stuff is combined, and there's a special notation to tell the Plutus smart contract platform what is supposed to be on-chain and what is supposed to be off-chain. I really like this. It makes things a lot easier to debug. It makes things a lot easier to read, and just in general makes things a lot easier to work with as a developer. That's my opinion. Some other people may enjoy having all their files split up. I know everyone has their own preferences. I like the idea of having single stream code, so that's my favorite thing that I've read so far. All that cool stuff said about Plutus and the Plutus smart contract language that's built on Haskell, we will still be able to write smart contracts with Solidity, with Java, with Python on the Cardano blockchain, and that's just good for adoption because we all know that people already know how to write code in Java. People already know how to write code in Python and Solidity. And so allowing them to bring those skill sets over to Cardano is just good business. It's a good way to go to bring people onto the Cardano ecosystem, then eventually maybe migrate them over to the Haskell-based Plutus smart contracts. Overall, I'm very impressed with the Plutus ecosystem for smart contracts. Although it is in beta, you have to understand that it's still being tested and a lot of things are definitely going to change. So there will be instability along the way, but so far I really like what I'm seeing. Here's where things get really, really interesting. There is also something that was released called Marlowe. Plutus and Marlowe. I think those are like really unique children's names. I wonder if there's like a Cardano super fan out there who has like 2 kids and named them Marlowe and Plutus. That would be hilarious. If that's you, definitely leave me a comment below. If someone's a big enough fan of Cardano to name their children Marlowe and Plutus, I will literally put your face on a t-shirt and I will sell it on my website because that would be super rad. Now what Marlowe is it's a platform that allows non-technical, so non-developer users to create smart contracts that are compatible with the Cardano blockchain. Now let that sink in for a second. Allowing non-technical users to create functional smart contracts to build things on a blockchain. That right there is something that I think is really going to help drive adoption for Cardano. Because we all know that ease of use, adoption, and overall a little bit of luck is what's really going to move the needle for projects in this crypto space that's moving so fast. By bringing a piece of software in that would allow financial services people, allow non-developers to build smart contracts that work on the Cardano blockchain, you can definitely accomplish 2 of those 3 goals, making it really easy to use and making it easy to adopt Cardano into your business or into your development process. So for that, count me stoked. Right now it's targeted at financial services, allowing different financial services folks to build smart contracts that serve purposes related to finance. So I would assume basic financial contracts, so on and so forth, basic escrows. That's probably what it's all about right now. I'm gonna test it out and report back to you guys as soon as I can. If you couldn't tell already, I'm pretty stoked about Plutus and Marlowe that were announced last year, and I'm excited for what is ahead for Cardano. I will also be for sure building something with Cardano so that I can report back and let you know what I think after getting my hands on all of this stuff. Now, in an effort to leave no stone unturned in this introductory Cardano video, I did want to talk about consensus for a little bit. Now, Cardano is a proof of stake blockchain, and they have a custom flavor of proof of stake called Ouroboros, or Ouroboros. I don't know. Let's call it Ouroboros for now. I'm pretty sure that's the pronunciation, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I guess. So as a little bit of a refresher, proof of stake is a more energy efficient alternative to proof of work consensus. Instead of iteratively hashing towards an arbitrary value to prove that you've done the work to mine a block and winning a block reward in proof of stake, you stake a certain number of network tokens, and that gives you the opportunity to be selected as a block generator. And the basic idea here is that if you hold network tokens and you're willing to freeze them on the network, the wealthier you are, the more likely you are to act in a positive manner for the network such that you don't devalue the network token you hold so much of. So it's basic game theory at play here in proof of stake, and it allows them to eliminate the crazy hashing that wastes electricity. Whether you like proof of stake or not, it's definitely an interesting concept, and it is a viable solution to address the problems with proof of work. There are a couple of units of measure that you have to understand when we start talking about how Ouroboros works. And the first of those is called an epoch. And an epoch is basically a set window of time in which blocks are generated. Now there's also something called a slot, and there are a bunch of different slots within each epoch. You can think about it like a calendar. There are a certain number of squares for days within every single month. It's the same thing. Each epoch is a window of time, and within those there are a bunch of slots. And each of those slots corresponds to a block needing to be mined. And each of those slots obviously needs to be filled with someone to generate those blocks and move the network forward. So there's a process in place using proof of stake to assign people to mine those blocks without having to use proof of work. And the process is as follows. First and foremost, there are a group of nodes called stakeholders that have frozen Cardano or ADA tokens, and their responsibility is to assign block miners to each of those slots within the Epoch. To be eligible to mine a block in this proof of stake environment, you have to freeze some ADA tokens. And so if you haven't noticed, to participate in this at all, whether as a stakeholder on that committee, to select the block miners, you have to freeze tokens. To be a miner, you have to freeze tokens. All that being said, the stakeholder committee that randomly selects the block miners is randomly selecting with a weight involved. And I say weight as in a weight, like not wait like waiting in a queue. You get the point. And that weight refers to the amount of frozen tokens or the volume of frozen tokens that a given eligible block miner has frozen. The more tokens you freeze, the better chance or the higher probability that you will be selected to mine a block in one of the slots. Now let's fast forward a little bit. The stakeholder committee that selects those block miners for each slot, they are randomly selecting with that weight in mind that we talked about just a second ago. When candidates are selected for each of the slots, those nodes that are selected are called slot leaders. And those slot leaders do have the responsibility to mine a block within that slot, and they are then rewarded for doing that work associated with block generation in network tokens. So ADA tokens are the payout reward, and those consist of network transaction fees and a fixed amount of reward for block generation. Like most blockchains, this is how new tokens are created or minted, and this is how inflation is guided over time. So this will fluctuate over time as monetary policy for these tokens changes. That's just the way of the world. So once each block within each slot is mined effectively, the existing stakeholder committee that selected those slot leaders, then their final task is to randomly select the next committee that will select the next group of slot leaders, and the process will continue. It's all a cycle. So you have a new Epoch with new slots. The committee selects slot leaders to generate blocks for each of those slots, and then that committee chooses a new committee to take over the responsibility. All of these people that participate in this process have to freeze tokens, and you have a better chance of being involved and getting that opportunity, getting that responsibility, the more tokens you freeze. So as we discussed before, the concept is simple. The more tokens you have, the more wealth you have in the network token, theoretically, you are more incentivized to do the right thing because you want to improve the network. You want to make things work to improve the value of your token. And furthermore, you're disincentivized to do the wrong thing because you hold so much wealth in that network token that if you were to do something malicious, you would potentially devalue that currency that you are holding. So all of this is rooted in game theory, like all consensus mechanisms are. That's why this space is so interesting, because it's a blend of technology and social sciences. It's really cool. And guys, there's a whole nother like 12 layers of depth to this Ouroboros protocol for proof of stake. I'm not gonna dive into all those technical details and all of that nonsense right now. If you guys want to see all that stuff though, let me know in the comments below if you want a deeper dive. I'd be happy to do so, just let me know. You may be wondering what my overall thoughts are about Cardano. Mind you, I'm an Ethereum developer, I have a lot of experience with Ethereum. Looking at Cardano, I am cautiously optimistic overall. Let me be candid, there are a lot of things about Cardano that sound really good, but sounding really good is not really enough, and I'm gonna withhold judgment overall until I've gotten the chance to actually build something with Cardano. That being said, I'm very interested and very excited about all the things that I've read and all the things that I've seen and the limited amount of hands-on time I've had with Cardano and the Plutus smart contracts. If those Plutus smart contracts end up working the way that I think they will, and are going to continue to improve in 2019 and beyond, I think they may have something really successful here. And I'm gonna preemptively get ahead of this because I know it's coming. Dan Larimer, the creator of EOS, has already come out and criticized the proof of stake within Cardano. He's already criticized Cardano in general. And I implore you to think about who Dan Larimer is and what his motives are for doing that. Cardano is a direct competitor to EOS, which is his main platform. That being said, why would he hype up Cardano? Why would he not criticize Cardano? Because it's a competing platform. Of course he's going to. So I would take all of his criticisms with a grain of salt. No one, and I mean no one out there, has solved the problem of decentralized consensus. No one has. No one's platform is the end game absolute killer app. No one has invented that yet. All of these projects are trying to get there. They're trying to build to that, and they're really all on the same team if you think about it. They're all trying to get to the same place. They're doing it differently. So take all the criticism with a grain of salt. When we do see a consensus mechanism or protocol that is energy efficient, fully decentralized, super fast, and also user-friendly, well, we will have a winner, guys, but it is not that easy. It's very difficult to do that. It's very, very, very complicated because there's a lot of different variables at play here. So don't read too much into the criticism. There's a lot of negativity and stuff flying around, but all these projects have their own unique niches and their own merit. And I always say you can learn a lot from the things that projects do that are really terrible, as well as what they do that is really good and really cool. My gut feeling, my first thought, based on my research and based on the time that I've spent with Cardano already, I think this one's here to stay for a long time. I believe in Charles Hoskinson. I don't think he's gonna make something that sucks. That's just my opinion, but obviously time will tell. It's that time again, it's question of the day. What do you guys think of Cardano? Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? Or are you really indifferent and just kind of waiting to see what happens? Let me know in the YouTube card above. I've got a poll. Curious what you guys think. Oh, and by the way, I've got some really, really cool other Token Talk Tuesday videos, and I have this really cool video right here. I will link it up for you guys to click and check those out. I really appreciate you spending the time here on my channel, and if you're not subscribed already, please do consider doing so. I'd be more than happy to have you part of the Hash Nation. Thank you guys so much. Cheers.